I close up my ears to close off my heart, so I can drown out the noise of this cruel world.
This cruel world?
That's right. The world where the father I hate lives. The world of angels and Evas. Where I'm forced to do terrible things. Where my father can replace me with a dummy and my friends get hurt. I know that good things happen too. But none of it ever seems to last. It all gets destroyed in the end. It's a cruel world.
Over the years, writers have conceived a general notion in how television shows are crafted. As long as writers conform their ideas to a 4-act pilot that is only preceded by a short teaser, they are then free to break out of those confines in later episodes. But even as they wander forward in their stories with their newly acquired own set of storytelling rules, there's still a sense of confinement. They are still forced to foreshadow events, develop characters in a meaningful way that has an overall effect on the story and its theme. They are still locked in place, a place devoid of change. They are still in stasis. So why is that, I ask? Is it a fear of expressing new ideas, new formats of storytelling? Or is it a fear of expressing ourselves? If so, what does this mean for Hideaki Anno? Neon Genesis Evangelion is a very different show. It isn't understood in one viewing, or even multiple. Some might say that it is even beyond comprehension. It follows almost no thematic structure. It goes as far as even denying itself of a teaser, which most television pilots almost always have. Over the course of the show, secrets are kept. We are kept in the dark. We don't know how each character feels about what is happening on screen. We don't know who to root for, and it forces us to reevaluate ourselves. Physically, the first human face shown on screen in the show is Shinji Ikari, our protagonist. As the definition of protagonist suggests, a protagonist is the main figure or one of the most prominent figures in the given situation. While this is true, it also does not suggest that a protagonist is always a good person. Shinji Ikari is a teenager that hasn't come to terms with who he is, nor who he wants to be. Shinji is tasked with saving the world from angels, but doesn't enjoy it. In his case, battling angels is almost a metaphor for his internal battles and how he battles himself constantly. Shinji is weighed with enormous responsibility, and at such a young age, doesn't know how to cope with it. He's a 14-year-old boy who struggles with believing in himself. Does he view himself as a good person? Or does his distrust of himself prevent him from ever loving himself? While Shinji's hands are the tool of piloting the Eva and protecting mankind, his hands are also the tool of some of the most vile acts in the show. He is a pessimist. For him, his vile acts are undeniably prevalent throughout his mind, and his bravest acts are nowhere to be found. Shinji Ikari is our protagonist, and whether or not he is a good person is up to interpretation. But what cannot be denied is his most genuine of struggles that we all face in our own lives. While some of us aimlessly wander through life wanting more out of ourselves or using entertainment as an escape, what seems to be neglected is that Shinji is no different. For some, Shinji is the pinnacle of the human mind. His thoughts are the thoughts we have all encompassed at some point or another. Shinji Ikari is therefore the same as us, and as we can see during instrumentality, he also uses fantasy and alternate realities as a form of escape. While he is incapable of loving himself, at least he can find some form of happiness in an alternate reality conceived by his mind, right? Well, maybe for a little bit. As this deception lingers, we see the best versions of ourselves. We conceive who we want to be in our heads, and that bliss turns into envy. We hate seeing the best version of ourselves. We become bitter. We despise the illusion that we ourselves have imagined. This cruel realization of self-hatred is also the energy that is manifested into changing ourselves to become better. to overcome our worst fears, our worst anxieties, and our inability to love ourselves. Shinji realizes this as he rejects instrumentality. Why live in illusion? Why be in stasis? Why run away? Shinji often laments that he mustn't run away, and in some of Evangelion's final moments, Shinji doesn't run away. He is tired of running away. He is tired of self-created illusions that signify contempt in oneself. Shinji's utter revulsion at his own image is now in the form of something entirely different. While he still might not love himself, at least he can now accept himself, and by doing that, also accepts the pain that comes with living in this world. This newly found self-acceptance is also what allows for his first act of love by Asuka, somebody who Shinji has always cherished. Shinji symbolizes what Asuka hates most about herself. She doesn't want to accept the part of herself that she loathes. But as Shinji accepts himself and the pain with acceptance, Asuka is finally able to show love to herself, which, by proxy, is Shinji. Shinji's acceptance led to Asuka's acceptance of herself, and therefore her acceptance of him. While Shinji and Asuka might not love themselves yet, as long as they accept themselves, it can always develop into love of not only themselves, but of one another. The hedgehog's dilemma is a metaphor for human intimacy. It is applied to Shinji by Ritsuko, as she believes his reserved nature is due to fear of being hurt as he becomes closer to anybody. This is applicable to Asuka as well, as we see her constantly express her need to live on her own, which was a mindset created by her tragic past. The fact that Shinji and Asuka both share this belief is all the more proof that they are more similar than they could ever imagine. They are scared to love themselves, but more so than anything, they are scared to love someone else. Asuka's kiss to Shinji was under the facade of boredom, when in reality she was lonely. The way she shuts the door in Shinji's face symbolizes her shutting the door on the parts of herself that she hates. When the door is open, she sees a reflection of herself. Evangelion's visuals are always the key to any given situation, and oftentimes the key into the soul of these characters that we are following. As I said in the beginning, this is like no other show. Evangelion has a way of feeling like so much more. It's almost more of a journey through the human mind than it is a show. This show has arguably impacted me more than any other piece of fiction put to screen. As each character traversed through their biggest conflicts, and as their voyage of self-hatred led them to hating themselves, I felt myself hating how similar it was to me. In the end of Evangelion, it breaks the fourth wall when Shinji sees an alternate reality, which for us is just viewed as our everyday lives. This edition proves that these are way more than just characters. They are the tragic thoughts of a depressed man written down onto a script that has resonated with so many fans of this series. And as I found myself hating that I related with these characters, I realized how ironic it was. I shouldn't hate it. I should accept it, because that's what this was all about in the first place. The themes of Evangelion are entirely up to interpretation, and whether or not you even like Evangelion is based on so many things. How you're feeling at the time, how old you are, what your living situation is, and so on and so forth. It's a hard show to understand, and it's a hard show to like. I fall in the category of loving this show more than almost any other show I have ever consumed. My interpretation of Eva is one of acceptance. I view Evangelion as a metaphor for life, for how our trek through life is often not a simple cruise. Waves may hit our cruise may almost crash, but what's important is that our cruise never crashes. When I watched Evangelion for the first time, I remember disliking Shinji, but it was because I disliked myself. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't know if I was good at anything. neither did Shinji. Shinji Ikari is all of us. He is our worst fears and our biggest dislikes of ourselves overall. Yet, despite that, he still managed to love himself. So if Unit 1's pilot can love himself, maybe we can too.
I hate myself. But maybe I could love myself. Maybe my life could have a greater value. That's right! I am no more or less than myself. I am me. I want to be myself. I want to continue existing in this world. My life is worth living here.
Congratulations.